Some people try and compare Old Testament to New Testament because they're liberals going to hell. They try and say God was mean then, but he's flowery and loving now. False dichotomy. Some people try and say, we're not sure about the historical events of the Old Testament. I mean, it's also confusing and barbaric. And I mean, it doesn't quite line up with our Darwinian evolution and our social science. So we'll question all of that, but probably the New Testament is reliable. No, wrong. All of Scripture is God-breathed. Some people try and say, well, these Jewish nomadic shepherds, ex-slaves, they were doing the best to understand God with what they had. But in the New Testament, God actually speaks. Wrong. That was God speaking through prophets and miracles. That was His word, His covenants, His laws. It was good. It is good for us to learn. It is good for teaching. It is true history. It is theologically significant. And it points to and culminates in Jesus Christ. The New Testament and the Old Testament, that's usually what we call the books of the Bible. Pre-Gospels, Old Testament. Gospels onwards, New Testament. But in a more theological and tonight's passage, in a more technical sense, that was the Old Covenant, or the epochs or dispensations or era when God was working through multiple covenants from God to man. First with Adam, then also Noah, then Abraham, Moses, and David. But in the New Testament, Jesus brings forth the new covenant. A new promise, a new oath, a new ratified covenant by which we can know God in greater fullness. And what Paul does is that he shows how the old pointed to the new. There is, in one sense, perfect continuity from Genesis 1:1 to the end of Revelation 22. There is perfect continuity between the first and the last author of the Bible, Moses to John, because they're all pointing to and revealing Jesus. But in a historical sense, the Old Covenant was without certain abilities, powers, and capacities, precisely because it was preparing the way for the Christ. It was not yet the establishment or the ratification or the expression and the manifestation of the Christ. We understand this. It was important. It was foundation. It was bricklaying, but it was not the glorious edifice that is Jesus Christ.